Hi and welcome to my beginner's guide for Industries of Titan. I'm Icon and this video will guide you through all necessary things that you need to set up a self-sustaining and successful corporation in this game. We're going to talk about the game's basics. I'm going to cover up all the necessary steps to produce your own materials, your own power, and set up your own defenses. The only topic I won't be covering up in detail in this video will be ship construction, because I feel like this is a topic which could deserve a video on its own. More about that later though. So let's get started with the basics. When we arrive here, we are in the midst of some ancient ruin field, and we start out with a couple of materials. Materials are shown up here. We work with minerals and isotopes. There's also credits and waste, but we really work mostly with minerals and isotopes. Credits as of now are used to unlock technologies which give us new building options, but that's pretty sure that this will be a function which sees some development in the future when the early access progresses further. So to earn and achieve new materials, we can survey and salvage ruins. As you see here, we click that and then one of our worker drones get over there and surveys that building. You start out with a couple of employees, and these are basically your working people. Oh, they are also consumers of credits, so you will need a couple of those in the future, but I neglected that topic because basically at some point money becomes non-substantial in the situation as it is right now. But let's check out the survey going here. Pressing a little bit further here. So now we see what this building has in store for us. Some isotopes and some waste if we would salvage that. So we're going to start and issue survey orders for all the ruins around us. The blue lines you see here marks the area that we actively own, and everything around here can be claimed via influence. As we see here, influence is gained 4 points every minute. If we check these plots here, for example, this plot costs us 4 influence. Ruins rise the price of the influence accordingly. So we have now surveyed our environment. There's minerals, isotopes, and wastes, but here we see that red icon. There's also red artifacts. Red artifacts are right now needed to unlock certain things. Most importantly, we need red artifacts to unlock access to the spaceport. The spaceport will be our staging point to gain citizens and minerals and isotopes, but the citizens are, as a matter of fact, the most important thing you can gain. There's also the council hall, where we can do direct trades with influence, but as you see here, this costs us 5 red artifacts, and this would cost us 3 red artifacts. Artifacts are also used to create new city employees, but more about that in a minute. So since we have not really anything in our pockets, we want to salvage one of these buildings. So I'm going to look for one which has a fair amount of minerals and isotopes. In general, isotopes are found in much lower quantities. As you see here, 4 isotopes versus 13 minerals, 32 minerals versus 2 isotopes. A drop of 5 isotopes is actually already a lot. So we're going to salvage this building and that building to gain ourselves some materials to work with. But to work with these materials for real, we also will need power. Power is being produced by processing fuel into power directly. And now we're going to leave the map for a moment and enter a building for the first time. Industries of Titan features a system where you have to build on the map and inside the buildings. Inside these buildings you have a selection of a lot of modules to work with, and for now we're going to focus on topic for topic. So I'm going to cover up this list during this video bit by bit. So to create energy, we will need first a fuel fabricator, which transforms the gas in the atmosphere, xethane, into fuel. These come in 2 different sizes, and the most important thing to know about them is they don't use energy. So they are autonomous and don't need any access to the power grid, which is quite useful on their own. As we see here now, new minerals get delivered, but we also have only a max capacity of 12 of these minerals. That's not going to work for a longer period of time, so we're going to set up a storage container. Storage containers are just like the fuel generators, not needing any power, so we can just build them. On top of that, I'm also going to build a new waste receptacle, because before we can process waste, we need to collect it. Waste will slow down your working efforts at some point if there's too much of it, and at some points working processes can even be completely halted if there's no spot to drop the waste on. So we have now a storage container, so all the materials we harvest outside there can now be safely transported into our base. I'm going to extract the artifacts from these buildings because I want to unlock the star port as quick as possible. So I'm setting up some survey jobs here just for in a minute. So now we're going to go back into the headquarters. I love to put into the headquarters only buildings that are meant to be used for storage, but for the tutorial we're going to work differently here. So we're going to put up a generator. I want to put up a large one. These come in 3 sizes again. The differences are only in energy output and in fuel consumption, but most importantly, as we see here, we have that grid going on, and a lot of this game is about using your space as efficient as possible. Every element that you build has different forms, and yeah, well, I'll leave that to you to find your favorite patterns. If you are totally about efficiency or not, it's up to you. So we're now building up our first generator. A generator is worth nothing without a fuel fabricator, so we're going to put up another one. I'm using large models right away because I feel like there's no need to start with smaller stuff. Alright. Let's fast forward a tad bit here. And here we go. So now we have the fuel fabricator and we have the generator. But as you see here, these are not connected yet. That's because there's no relay which connects the power generator into the actual power grid. So to lead out the produced power out of this building also needs an energy bridge in the vicinity of the relay. Otherwise, the power will be only accessible inside this building. But since I don't really want that, we're going to do this. And now, as you see, since the relay is built, we now have a power production of 9 and a fuel surplus of +2. So one thing that I want to do right away is I also want to put up some fuel storage. The thing here is the Thane is diminishing at some point. If you click a grid, you see there's a Thane density of 30%. This means while my fuel fabricators are working, they deplete that stuff slowly. To avoid that, you run out of fuel eventually. You can use the Thane layer, and you see here these are crevices. Crevices are something we really need to look for because they generate that stuff. So my first goal is kind of like always build myself towards these crevices to get myself a sustainable source of energy. So we have here our first goal already set up. I'm going back to the territory grid, which shows us these useful lines. So we see our territory is already expandable towards these crevices. That's really good. If that's not the case, you can also just build yourself a command center. These are used to expand your circle of vision, but more about that later. So we're running out of room in our headquarters, so we're building our first factories now. Factories are really cool. They offer you more space to work with, and to give them the power, we need to put up an energy pylon as well. There we go. So I'm building 2 factories right away next to each other because I'm a big fan of utilizing my factories like that. So we're now going to claim these fields because I want to have the artifacts from these grids. So here we go, extracting these. So since we slowly will run out of money when our citizens get their, or no, my employees get their salaries, we will work now on 2 things. I want to upgrade my power production, and I want to make sure that we can have citizens. So one thing that I really like to do is to connect my factories together. 2 factories that are sitting right next to each other can be connected with 2 isotopes, and this gives you a lot more room to work with inside the building. So right now I'm using these, and we're now going to unlock the spaceport. I'm going to explain the spaceport after we have set up the necessary infrastructure for the citizens. So right now, just claiming these grids for later, and the factory is now finished. So now we can enter the factory, and as we see here, the factory now has the room of 2 buildings together. You can use factories, of course, exclusively from another, but I really enjoyed that setup. So to get power into the building, we will now need an energy bridge again. There's nothing we can do without energy bridges. And since I noticed that I'm already running out of minerals again, we're going to salvage a few here and there to get our materials back online. Okay. So, next thing I'm going to talk about is our citizens. After that, I'm going to work with processors. And one thing up front, I personally think once you understood how the game works, it's absolutely worth to go for the processors before you go for the population, but for the sake of understanding things, I'm going to do it like that. I personally don't think that's an ideal strategy, though, if you want to min-max a bit. So we have now a energy bridge online. Now we need that relay. The relay needs to touch the energy bridge to make sure that the power transmission works. Okay, we're now going to try and be happy with the power we have, as hard as I find that. And we're now going to get room for citizens. Citizens live in habitat pods. These pods need to be put onto grids, of course, that onto power grid slots, let's call them like that. And every one of these gives us enough room to have 2 citizens living there. So obviously we're running out of minerals again, so let's claim these areas again. Just making sure that we have new resources to work with. So as you see here now, we have now the slots open for 2 citizens. If we check out the spaceport, we see here the offers of ships that want to land on our planet. We see here the costs of the ship. It will cost us 2 influence, and it will bring 4 citizens. Keep in mind that some ships not only bring citizens, they also can bring materials to work with. One thing is important to notice, though: you can't accept these if you don't have the necessary living room for the people to live in. So we're now going to wait until the materials are here, and we're going to build a second habitat pod. So I'm putting these facing each other, and after these are built, we're going to invite our first citizens into our little corporation. So citizens are used for 2 things. You can turn them into employees with the conversion capsule, or you can let them work on monetization stations. Monetization stations are basically office booths where your citizens go into to watch advertisements. No, I'm not making this up. It's actually working like that. Oh, I missed that offer. So now we have to wait until we get another offer that has the right amount of citizens for us. But basically there's not much more to it. You pack them, you invite them from the starport. They live inside the habitat pods, and if there are monetization stations available for them, they will go to work every day and generate money for you. Keep in mind that when you look at these buildings where your citizens are connected into, there's a livability score. The livability score gets influenced by a lot of things. Among these, the thane density, waste and pollution density, proximity to waste, the amount of jobs. So TLDR, keep waste and pollution as low as possible, give them jobs and keep it as close as possible to the headquarters if you want to do living zones. Okay, but that's pretty much all we can say about that system. There's not much more to that. Population management works just like that right now with the game. This is a really nice and simple system, and I think it is quite enjoyable, but it sure can use some more depth. So now we're going to pause the video. I'm going to set up a couple of power generators, and I'm going to come back once I have the infrastructure to set up the processors. Alright, so I built myself a new facility here specifically for that, and to set up a processor we will need 30 units of minerals. A processor is a multi-part thing. You need the processor as the hard piece. Wait, that was not where I wanted to have it. You need that as the centerpiece. A processor then needs an input module. You need to decide if you want to process minerals or isotopes. I'd highly recommend to start with the mineral refinement first, and then you see here the power plug icon needs to go somewhere into the processing unit. So we have now mineral input. We need an output module, of course. Same rules apply here as well. We need to put that somewhere here. Oh, I need a new power grid thing here. Let's do this like that. So we need an output module, of course. We need an employee module where the employees will actually work. And we need a waste module, last but not least, which will make the waste, will transport the waste away. So this is what we'll need to process minerals. What does mineral processing mean? One of our employees will now go to that machine and use it. Minerals will then be upgraded from tier 1 to tier 2, which is a really cool process because this will take one tier 1 material and upgrade it into a tier 2 material. And as you see here, a tier 2 material is worth 5 minerals. And then we can go and produce another processor, the level 2 processor, which will even upgrade the minerals into tier 3 materials, where we can turn 1 unit of materials into 25 units of materials if we process them long enough. As we see here now, we magically quintupled all our materials that we had available, which is really, really powerful. With this method, we can kickstart our production and get it into new levels. So we're now going to claim a couple of minerals more, and I think let's see. What's the issue here? No minerals. Okay, we're working on that. Promise. So now we're going to set up another grid here. Let's do this like that. And the level 2 processor needs a lot more materials, as we see here. It works exactly the same as the level 1 processor. The parts are the same, the procedure is the same. I'm just going to build that up in between. We're now going to set up a new energy generator. I finished this room here we now have four monetization centers, and the citizens are now working in a way that we can pay our wages, which is really good. So I have a surplus of 4 fuel, so we can easily set up another generator. Always keep in mind that every generator needs to sit on the power grid, otherwise it is not able to transport its power into the grid. So you can also process isotopes the same way you can process minerals, which just basically does the same for them as it does for the minerals. If you are wondering what's to prefer, it's quite simple. I'd always rush the mineral refining process first, because basically you make your interiors out of minerals mostly, and the most map building outside there are made out of isotopes. That's not entirely true. A few exceptions apply here, but mostly it works like that. So now we're going to set up the tier 2 processor. You see, it is a little bit larger than the tier 1 processor, but believe me, that's the major difference here. So we're going to place it down here. Here applies the same thing. Mineral input module, an output module, an employee module, and a waste module. The waste module doesn't process the waste though, you know? It just works like a waste bin. As long as a waste receptacle, as a waste unit is connected, this works like it catches the dirt that comes out of the factory. So now we have set this up as well. Well, we're still missing a piece of energy. So we see now that we start to allocate a lot of waste, and that starts to turn out to be a problem. To get rid of waste, we can use smokestacks. We're going to unlock our first smokestack and use it. As you see here, smokestacks generate pollution. They need 1 employee permanently. They reduce the livability effect quite heavily, and they cost energy. More energy than we have right now. So I'm going to pause this video for a moment, set up a few more things, and say hi to you once we're good and ready to go. So now I am back with a fully functioning isotope processing facility. It's the same procedure as I mentioned before, and now we have the necessary power to set up the smokestack. The smokestack will need 100 minerals and 2 isotopes and 8 energy. As I mentioned before, it produces pollution, and therefore try to keep it as far away from your living areas as possible, because it will make your people unhappy. Out here there are also mineral patches, which when you claim them you can assign employees into, and then they start to manually mine that stuff for you, which is quite cool as a ways and means to gain new materials. So now the smokestack has been built up. We now need to assign an employee to this one, and now this will start to produce or to destroy pollution for us. Keep in mind that this is a process which should be done as much as possible and as early as possible, because pollution surely racks up quite quickly. So we have it not on the power grid so far, so let's install a power pylon here. Of course, what works with minerals also works with isotopes, so we can also gather these. So the next thing we're going to need are defenses, because you see here there's this rebel threat level already rising up. The thing is, the rebels are not bound to a time, they are bound to your net worth. So they will attack once your factory or your company, corporation, however you want to call it, has hit a certain value. So since we now have the basics online, we process minerals and isotopes, we produce our own fuel and our own energy, I feel quite autonomous right now. The big problems we still have to tackle now are the defenses and a permanent solution for our power production, but one thing at a time. As we see here, the zethane density is dropping and dropping. You can also just deplete these things if you want to, and then deconstruct all the fuel fabricators in these. Also keep in mind that there are also air purifiers and industrial fans. Industrial fans redistribute pollution and methane, so basically with these you could redirect this stuff somewhere else. But what I personally prefer is just to build my fuel producers in the vicinity of these crevices. There are two ways to do it. You can either set up a factory over here to collect fuel there, but you can also build up a fuel turbine, which just will convert methane from the grid into fuel directly. Everything you build inside the buildings is also available as a map building, I want to call it. So there's an energy power plant, which brings a whopping amount of 48. These buildings are like specialized factories that don't need the effort to configure them for your needs. So we can also set up mines. As you see here, a mine would collect these materials on a larger area. Why can't I build right now? Somebody care to explain? Oh, I can't build on the patches themselves. Okay, so with a mine we could just do automatically what we do here manually. Right now I wouldn't really use it, but it can be very, very useful when you don't want your employees running around on the map like that. So we're going to collect now the necessary materials to build the shipyard and the defense cannon, but I'm going to start out with the shipyard because the defense cannon is way less interesting than the shipyard. But before we can do that, our power production is again on the sink. As we see here, also there's a power pylon necessary, and this is how you expand and progress in this game in general. We have discovered the main gameplay loop, and so far expanding more and more and surviving the rebels and destroying them are the big things we can do in this game. So once this factory has been powered up, we're going to do what we always do: put up an energy bridge, put up a relay. For this one we're going to build a big one, and these are going to be our fuel fabrication facilities. If we do it like that, we're guaranteed to drain the tile that's eventually from its fuel production, but there are more tiles around the crevice that we can claim, as you see here, and they will also always refresh as long as the crevice is next to that. Over here at the council hall, I already unlocked that. You see here we can transform these into minerals. The what was it called again? The influence, sorry. Influence into minerals, isotopes, or credits. So if you want to unlock a new project, that's also a way to do it. We can also transform these minerals and materials into goodwill if you want to, but actually I'm not that interested right now. So we are now not really getting anywhere, so here we go. So give me a sec to build that up. Now, our shipyard is finally getting built, and a few words towards the end of this video. All these buildings here can, by the way, be also upgraded, as you see here. The factories can be upgraded to contain more tiles, so everything you're building here can be enhanced and made larger. Also worth mentioning, your headquarters can burrow for a certain amount of credits, which allows your headquarters to hide below the surface, which can be quite useful when you get attacked. Alright, but now we have the shipyard available, and let's work with that one a little bit too. The shipyard is your spaceship factory. You can select a ship hull inside here. They have several levels, and well, some are still locked, some are unlocked. You see here the layout, you see the speed, the hold strength, how many tiles it has, how much crew it needs. all the good stuff. We're going to select just one of these hulls now to give you an impression what this does. The ship production works just like the same as your all the other production things in your game work. When you're building a ship, you're basically setting up a grid where you can build upon. Your ship will need a power generator just like your other things, and all the necessary parts which are needed for the well-being of your other buildings are basically also needed for your spaceship. We're just waiting until the materials get delivered here, and then we're almost done with this tutorial. The defense turret that I haven't built yet is quite simple and doesn't need too much explanation. You just put it up. It has a certain radius which it covers up, it needs power, and it needs an employee, and that's that. Keep in mind it has a high livability debuff, so therefore you should be careful about that. Alright, our ship has been built, and as we see here now, it needs an engine, and that's the biggest difference, that these things have engines, shields, and lasers. So an engine will be built in here. And then you need to set up a generator to give this whole thing power. And keep in mind, all the energy here is only used by this grid. So we're going to build up a generator to give you a better impression of what I'm talking here. So here's the engine. And as soon as we have that, we're also needing a relay to transport the power somewhere. It's all the same stuff that we have with the buildings. You see here it's disabled because it also has no fuel. So we're unable to do a fuel supply on the... We're unable to produce... Oh no, we can produce fuel. Oh, sorry, almost told you something wrong. So we're going to produce the fuel here as we go, and then from there you see you have shields, you have lasers. Just install them as you see fit. The really important thing is that your ship here has its own power grid. As soon as the power systems are online, you see it has its own power grid. Keep in mind that you need life support and you need crew pods, well, crew pods to board ships, but the life support is extremely important. Your ship then is almost ready to go. You just need to take care that you have enough life support for the crew of the ship. Usually it's 6 people, but you can check that out when you build the hull in before. So I don't want to lose too many words beyond that about building ships, because this is just a tutorial meant to cover up all the basics of this game, and that's what we did here. The last thing that I want to talk about is the transport hub and the roads. So the larger your whole area grows, the more problems you will have if you only let your employees work on foot. So this is what you'll need to get larger projects going. So I think that covered up everything. I hope that was helpful for you, and I personally think like that's all you need to get the ball rolling. Keep in mind that when this thing gets closer to 100%, you should actually have at least a defense turret and or ships, depending on your personal style of defense. I can only say it's easiest to defend just with a defense turret at the beginning. Keep in mind that even if you are living next to a crevice, one factory will eventually deplete the Zethane deposits, so having a certain stockpile of fuel is imperative to avoid shortages. Alrighty, I hope that was helpful for you. There's still a lot of things that can be still explained about this game. Keep the autocurrency setting on as often as you can, because the game calculates then which combination of minerals are the best to avoid overpaying. And feel free to drop your comments down below. Leave a thumbs up. If there are any questions left, just ask away. Also, if you like that kind of content, check out my channel. I do daily stuff like that, so maybe you'll find something there you like. Also, check out the description down there. You'll find there my Twitch channel where I do daily streams, so maybe you want to go and check it out as well. And last but not least, if you want to support my work, down there are links to do so. There's coffee, there's tips, whatever you want to. But if you don't want to, just let me say one more time, thanks for watching. That's the biggest support of them all. And have fun with this wonderful game, which is right now not complete, but it is a solid early access with a lot of vibe and a lot of good atmosphere to it. Can't wait to see where this will go. See you soon and goodbye.